was another long night here in Chicago for Automate, and not just because everybody was hanging out together necessarily really late, but also that this is right outside the hotel. You know, it's funny because I know they have sound ordinances just about everywhere, but somehow in Chicago it doesn't matter if you roll through on a lightning rattling train from what it sounds like 1943 right through the middle of the city in the middle of the night 28 times a night. It seems to be just fine. Actually, it's probably more like 50 times a night. Those things do not stop. Anyhow, you don't want to hear me talk about that. Today, I am going to talk to you about ROI. So I spent a lot of time yesterday talking to people about their projects, different applications that they had in mind, and of course about, our robots here. But one of the things that came up also was a good ROI being 18 months. Now, don't get me wrong. If you can get an 18-month ROI, that is a really good ROI. If you can get a return on investment, for any automation equipment, any capital equipment, 18 months is really good. What I don't understand is where that 18-month number started to percolate through the industry and start to become a standard. When I was younger, and by younger I mean, 20 years ago, when we would talk to people about investing in capital equipment, it was really standard to hear 3 years. 3 years was very acceptable, and quite frankly, it was a good number. If you could get your payback in 3 years on a project, then that was considered really good, really solid. I remember some people going out 4 and 5 years and thinking, yeah, that's pretty good. This is going to, in 5 years, we're going to be in a lot better position than we are now. And now there seems to be this kind of movement against, if something's out 3 years, then people don't seem to want to have much to do with it. And here's the thing about it. Here's the reason I bring it up. Is because people come to me in this booth, and not just here, but they come to outside of here at work, and they talk to me about projects that are clearly giving them issues. They're clearly troubling applications, whether it's for health reasons, whether it's because it's a dirty job or a boring job and they can't keep anyone in it, so they're having personnel issues. They can't keep, their HR people are yelling at them. They can't keep production up. So this application was important enough for them to approach a complete stranger, go out of their way to talk about it, but then they get hung up if the ROI, it goes past that 18 months. They get hung up if it's, 3 years. As though if they don't do anything now, then in 18 months, they'll somehow be in a different position. And that's the thing, is that if you don't like an 18-month ROI, more power to you if you can get it, by all means. But if you don't do anything now, because that ROI seems like, well, in 3 years, well, we're just not, that's just too much, then guess what? In 3 years, you're going to be right where you are today. Nothing will have changed. This is the oldest, simplest saying: if you don't change anything, nothing's going to change. And personally, I think 3 years is really good. I kind of call BS on an 18-month, standard or a need for an 18-month ROI. Personally, I think that is more a function of the accounting department wanting the books to look really good, which is fine. That's their job. But that has to be balanced with the functionality and longevity of not only just the company. I know, anyone in accounting is going to say, well, that is the function or the longevity of the company right there. But it doesn't have to be perfect. The longevity of the company is also about more than money. It's about culture. It's about, retention of people. It's about being able to keep making progress, lest, again, I can't say it enough, in 3 years, if you do nothing today, in 3 years, you'll just be in the same spot you were, or in 18 months. And then you'll be saying, well, gosh, should we do it now? And you're 18 months or 3 years behind. Why not just do it today? Take that 3-year hit. This is kind of like when you tell people to go to a college or a trade school. It's not like you're telling them, oh, hey, this is going to, pan out in 18 months, you're going to be done. No, it's a longer investment. You have to go there for a while. You have to spend some time learning. And even then, you got to spend some time in an industry or in a profession to get some experience before you come out and can really start accelerating your growth. So it's where I'm going with this is that it's a message that seems to be understood, adapted, and accepted in a lot of other places. But for some reason, it's not just manufacturing, but I'll stick with manufacturing for now because that's where I am. For some reason in manufacturing and capital equipment purchases, people have moved to this 18-month model and just think nothing's good enough for it. And here's the other thing. So many soft ROI things get left out of that 18-month figure. Things like, some of them I mentioned earlier, things like culture of the company, how much stress people are under, how much people are willing, when your employees see that the ownership or leadership is willing to invest in projects that are giving them trouble, not just based on money, and how much that can help with employee retention, with culture, and not just culture internally, but culture externally. What other people see about your company, they see, okay, these guys are willing to invest. They're actually moving forward. They keep upgrading their stuff. They keep improving their processes. And there's somebody I want to work with. So you get a lot of external perception that is positive for you, and you get a lot of internal factors that are better for you. You don't have an HR person who's pulling their hair out all the time because they've got to put another ad in because another person walked off of this job because it's just awful and they can't find another body right now. And you don't have a manager who's going through the same thing and coming to the supervisor and yelling about it. And then that guy starts thinking about putting in his resignation too because he's sick of dealing with that. Those things are all things that really affect a company and how well they are to come in, how great they are to come in and work. And they don't play well on the books. They don't show up on the books at all. So I think it's time, in my opinion, it's time to dial the clock back a little bit on that whole 18-month thing and start really factoring in the other things. Factor in the things that aren't just on the books and tell the accountant, hey, okay, what I need to know is, can we live with this? I don't need to know if it's perfect. I don't need to know if it's going to be the optimum. I need to know if we can live with it, because these other things have to be taken care of. And here's another benefit of dealing with a project like that and getting it off your plate. You get to turn your attention to other things. You don't have this, lump hanging over your head anymore. You don't have this goose egg following you around, or some issue that has been a thorn in your side and is going to keep being a thorn in your side. And even if you think you're passing it off to the next guy, next person, whatever, you're going to hear about it because it's just going to keep staying there. Your culture is going to fester with it. Your company's going to fester with it. Everything is just going to keep going on. So you could do something about it right now, as long as you let go of that 18-month idea and accept. And I'm not saying accept, it's going to take 15 years to pay back. Oh yeah, go ahead and do it now. Like I always say, one of the first questions to ask, or first 3 questions to ask, if you're looking at hard ROI, how many people are doing it? How many hours a day? How many days a week? That kind of narrows it down pretty quick in terms of just, a quick evaluation on ROI. So I'm a big fan of running those numbers. You need to know, you can't just do something because, I guess you can if you have all the money in the world, but that one's going to be tough to get through if it's going to take you an eternity to get it back. But if it's going to take you something, like 3 or 4 years, personally, I think that is something that should be more considered reasonable. I think it is reasonable. And quite frankly, I'd be pretty excited about 3 years. I think 3 years is a really good number. And I think it's something more people should probably shoot for. So in any event, I would really like to see more people get some of those projects off their plate. Like I said, they were important enough for them to come over to me and talk to me about. A complete stranger took the time to come over to the booth, talk to me about a project, and found out that the ROI was just a touch longer than they expected. And I know that 3 years is double 18 months, but it's also only 3 years. So it's not bad, especially on a $250,000, $300,000 project. So I'd really like to see more people kind of looking at 3 years as something exciting, something positive, instead of something that's, just too long to deal with, because I don't think it is. And in 3 years, I'd rather be talking to that person about the next project and about the next thing that we can do to keep advancing their company, instead of going back to this one and realizing that all we did was spend the last 18 months or 3 years not doing anything about it, and now it's even more desperate. So that's my thoughts for the day. I hope to see you at the booth, and hey, what the hell, we'll talk more about it then.